Tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves anyone out there, especially yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one master class. It is known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Welcome to the show. Today's topic is the power of strategy. Definition of strategy is a plan of action or policy designed to achieve a major or overall aim. I'm discussing this as a lot of people have, over time, people who ask me for help or they've expressed some type of challenge, is clear often when people have some type of challenge with whatever they're doing, whatever they're working on. It could be an athlete playing a sport, trying to advance in their sport. It can be a working business professional just trying to figure out what they're going to do in their business or what they're going to do for their career, or just a person just trying to achieve certain things in life and they haven't quite gotten to that. They haven't quite gotten to it. Maybe they've been working on it, or they started to work on it, or maybe they've been working on it forever. They just feel like they don't see an end goal. They don't see the pot at the end of the rainbow, and they've been running for a long time trying to get to the other side of the rainbow. And it's very clear often that a lot of people are out here working hard, dedicated hard work with no strategy whatsoever. And that lack of strategy is usually, at least partially, the cause of people's issues. When there is no strategy in place, there is no plan of action in place designed to achieve the outcome that they're after. So if you have certain outcomes that you wish to achieve, you have certain places you want to get to in life, it would help you a lot. And this is the case that I'm going to make here in today's class. It will help you a lot to have a plan in place. It will help you a lot to at least take some of your time and figure out, all right, how am I going to do this? All right, I know what I want to do. Now, how am I going to do it? What is the first step? What's the next step? What's the next to last step? What do I need to do before that? What needs to be true before that? What would need to be true before that? The time that you take to do this is worth its effort. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. Again, the power of strategizing. So today we're going to talk about why strategy matters so much. What are the things that strategy is actually going to do for you? And I'm going to tell you how you can work with me and how you can get insights and enrichment from me when it comes to strategizing for what you wish to achieve in life, so that you actually have a plan in place instead of just hoping that you can get by on talent or flying by the seat of your pants, hoping that you figure things out along the way. While that can work sometimes, it's not going to keep working all the time. So let's get into it. Point number one, topic once again, the power of strategy. Number one thing strategy does is it allows you to see the finish line. Wouldn't it be great if from where you are right now, you could see how you would actually get from where you are to where you want to go? Wouldn't that help a lot? Wouldn't it help if you had that ability? Many people begin things as a means to an end, but they continue doing the thing as if the thing that they're doing is the end. For example, if a woman decides she's going to be an exotic dancer, she's going to be a stripper so she can pay for college, but 5 years after college is over, she's still stripping and she's dropped out of school. She hadn't even finished school. She went 1 year or one semester. 5 years later, she's still stripping. She started stripping just to go to school. Now she's not even in school anymore. She's still in the thing that she was supposed to be using as a go-between point A and point Z. And the reason why that happens is because she didn't have a plan in place for getting out of the game. Had she had a plan in place, she would have said, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this much money. I can put this much away. This much is going to go to school. Then at this point, I'm going to get this in place so that I don't need this job dancing anymore. I can transition to doing this thing over here and I can get completely out of that. But if you don't have that plan in place, what happens is a lot of times, this happens with a lot of us, is that we start something because we think, this is our pie in the sky goal, is that if we do this for a short period of time or this much time, we'll be able to create this outcome and build up these resources. Then we'll transition from this to the next thing and this to the next thing and this to the next thing and live happily ever after. The problem with that idea is that unless we plan it out, often we overlook things. There are certain things that we didn't even notice or consider when we were making our grand, perfect plans of everything working out exactly as we wanted it to work out. And then when we run into problems along the way, we run into things that we did not foresee and things don't work exactly as we thought they were going to work. We are not prepared to do anything about it because we didn't do the planning up front. This is what happens to people all the time. They don't do the planning up front, and then when things don't go exactly as they thought they were going to go, they're stuck because they didn't even think about, oh, what was I supposed to do if this situation didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. So this is one of the main reasons why you strategize. The most important reason why you strategize, so you can see the finish line. So when something happens that erects itself in between you and the finish line, you have some idea, hopefully some semblance of an idea of what you would do if that situation came up. Now here that situation is, now you can do something about it. That's the main thing that strategizing does. Even though your strategy may not be perfect, even though your strategy may be completely flawed, even though your plan may not be the best plan, you may need to modify that plan many times over along the way. Understand the fact that you took the time to plan, the fact that you took the time to strategize is challenging yourself, challenging your brain to think about what might not work here, what might go wrong here, what would I do in this situation. All right, so when I do that, this is supposed to take this long, this is supposed to take this long. See, when you know what your plan is, when you know what your plan of action is, you have a strategy up front, then you can gauge as you begin to take action. You can look at your actions and you can look at the results of your actions and say, okay, how close is this to what I thought it was going to be? How close is this to what I expected to be happening by this point in the journey? And if it's way off, then you know something's wrong, you can do something about it. But if you never took the time to plan or strategize in the first place, how do you know? What is your compass? How do you know that you're going in the wrong direction? How do you know that this thing is really not working the way it was supposed to? If you don't have a plan in place from the beginning, you have nothing to compare your actions to. You have nothing to compare your current station, your current results to, because you didn't even take the time to plan from the beginning. If you were going to write a book and you say, all right, I'm going to take 30 days to do all the writing for the book, because it's going to be a relatively short book and I'll get all my writing out in 30 days. And then 6 months later, you're still doing the writing for the book. You would know, all right, I planned for this to take 30 days. Now here we are on day 180. Something happened here. What happened? And you'll be able to ask yourself that question, first of all. Then you'll be able to answer it and figure out what the hell was going on. Maybe something happened that you expected, maybe something that you didn't expect. But imagine that you never took the time to plan. And what should have taken you 30 days is now taking you going on 6 months, going on 6 years. But there was no plan in place from the beginning. So you never ask yourself the question, why is this taking so long? It's just taking as long as it takes. And then the next thing that comes up, you don't have any questions about that either. And the next thing, there are no questions about that. And the next thing, there are no questions about that. And before you know it, all your time has been eaten up trying to do something, or trying to do something that you never planned for in the beginning. So when things don't go the way that they could have gone, or as ideally as they could have went, you don't even know that things aren't going the way they could have went, because you never planned it out in the first place. If you don't have a plan to get to where you want to get to, you'll end up anywhere at any time doing whatever you could be doing, and you'll never even know that something's wrong because you didn't take the time to strategize. In the old days of, way before Bluetooth and satellite and all that, when there would still be wars between armies, some generals would start conflicts with neighboring countries that they felt like their army was stronger than, and they would start the war, defeat that other country, acquire the new territory, but then they had no strategy as for when to stop. So they would acquire another territory, then acquire more, then gobble up more, then gobble up more. So they just kept fighting and fighting and fighting until eventually one of several things happened. They either got into another fight and then they came up against an opponent who was stronger than them, at least in the moment, and they ended up getting murdered, or their whole army decimated. Or they just kept gobbling up land, taking every territory that they could until their resources were stretched too thin, because they had to defend all of this land that they were now the conquerors and the owners of. They had to defend it against everybody else trying to take it from them. So without the strategy in place, they may end up doing a whole lot of work that they didn't even need to be doing had they had a plan in place from the beginning, or end up dead, not able to do anything, simply because they didn't strategize for when the thing they were doing was over. Because understand that a strategy is a plan of action designed to achieve a major or overall aim. So when your strategy has worked out and you've achieved the major or overall aim, now at that point you can stop. At that point you don't have to keep going and keep trying to do the thing over and over again, because the strategy takes you from the starting point to the end point. So you're at the end point already. You don't have to worry about doing anything else. Any entrepreneurs who are listening to this, or freelancers, or those who are looking to become one of those, you ever feel like you've worked all day, but then you're guilty? You feel guilty when you want to go to sleep, or when you want to take a nap, or when you want to take a walk, or spend time with your kids, or eat dinner, or talk to your significant other. You feel bad when you go and take a break, even though you spent the entire day working already. Why is this? The reason you feel bad is because you are not following a strategy, and thus you don't know how much you need to be doing each day in order to be done. You don't know what time you'll be done today because you're just going to keep doing stuff and doing stuff and doing stuff till you can't do anything else. You are literally working yourself to death because you don't have a strategy in place. When you have a strategy or plan in place, you know, okay, today, here are the top 3 things that I need to get done. When these 3 things are done, I can stop working for the day because I've achieved what I needed to achieve for today. And tomorrow, I have another couple of things. And the next day, I'll have this one thing. And next day, I got this going on. But when you have a strategy in place, ladies and gentlemen, you know when to start, you know what to do after you start it, and you know when to stop. When you have a strategy in place, you know when and where to start, you know what you are doing after you started, and you know when to stop. How many of you right now feel like you're in a situation where you're sprinting on a treadmill? Meaning you're working really hard, you're putting a ton of energy out, you never have any additional resources, you never have any extra time or energy or attention to give to anyone, yet you're on a treadmill. Meaning as hard, no matter how hard you run, you don't feel like you're getting anywhere. The view has not changed, even though you're running as fast as you possibly can. If you feel like that type of person, first of all, you need to go to workonyourgameuniversity.com and join us so I can help you put together strategies more personalized for you. And the other thing you need to do is start strategizing. First of all, get off the treadmill. Second of all, start strategizing what you're doing. When you strategize, you can say, here I am, here's where I want to be, here are the steps, and then once you achieve it, once you get to that where I want to be point, you can stop. Maybe you can come up with a new strategy, you can come up with a new plan. But if you're not following a strategy in the first place, how would you know when to stop? How would you know when to begin? How would you know how much you're going to need of anything? Time, money, attention, energy, focus in order to get to where you want to get to. When you have a strategy, you know what is going on, when you begin, when you end, and what's in between. Point number 2. Topic here today is the power of strategy. Another thing that strategy does, it creates predictability. Something that I learned in business over the years is that you can actually predict what your business is going to do when you have a strategy in place. At least if you're doing something in business that you've been doing for long enough that you have some reasonable idea of what kind of results you get. Now, if you're doing something brand new, maybe not. But when there's a strategy in place, you give yourself the option of being able to predict what is going to happen in and for and from your business. A wise strategist in a competition, any competition, can predict the moves of their opponent. Why? Because that wise strategist has studied the game so much and they know exactly what to expect. This could be a martial artist. They can expect what punches or kicks their opponent is going to try. A basketball player can anticipate what play the other team is going to run if they've been paying attention to the game for long enough, or if they read the scouting reports closely enough. Sometimes when you have, not sometimes, but many times, when you have a strategy in place, you can predict exactly how things are going to go in areas that many people would consider to be unpredictable, like the performance of other people, or like the performance of your business, or like the kind of results you're going to get from something that you're working on right now. A wise strategist can predict the moves of their opponent. They, of course, can predict their own moves, and they can predict the moves of their team because they've studied the game so deeply they know exactly what to expect. I've heard many athletes, and maybe you have too, talk about the feeling of being able to read the mind of their opponents during the game. It's almost like they know exactly what their opponent is going to do before the opponent does it. Why can they do this? It's because they've seen the same things so many times, over and over and over again. They've seen the same results. They've seen the same actions being taken. They've seen the same responses to their stimuli. Good strategists are always looking for ways to better predict outcomes. They are not accepting random results. Let me repeat that one. Good strategists are always looking for ways to better predict outcomes. They do not accept random results. Though a random result may occur, a good strategist is going to find out why that random result occurred. How did that random result pop up? What was the reasoning for it? And maybe it wasn't as random as they thought it was. Maybe it would have been predictable had they noticed certain things in their planning stage and their strategizing stage. But a good strategist is always looking for ways to, again, do things faster, more efficiently, better than they did them before. Point number 3, topic here today is the power of strategy. Understand that you can diagnose issues and fix the specific problem, not to be lost on what the issue is and not to fix the wrong things. Let me say that sentence one more time. You can diagnose issues when you strategize, diagnose what the issues are, and you can fix the specific problem that you are running into in the moment instead of being lost as to what the issue is and instead of fixing something that's not even broken. As the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. What a lot of people do when they don't have a strategy is when things don't go right, they start dealing with things. They start changing things around. They start making moves. They start making adjustments, which sounds like a good idea, right? If you have something that you're working on and it's not quite working, what do? You start doing things differently. All right, let me try this. Let me see what this does. All right, that didn't do anything. Let me try this. That didn't work. Let me try something else. That sounds like a good idea, right? But here's the problem with that idea. When things are not working and you just start randomly changing things because you have not properly diagnosed what is causing things to not work, you may end up changing something that was working perfectly fine, but now that's also not working. Now you made the situation worse. This is what happens when someone doesn't have a strategy in place. You're working on things because you're not getting the result that you want, at least not yet, but you work on the wrong thing. You work on the thing that's not even going to change the situation. You work on the thing that is not even the actual problem. You work on something that is already working. You're fixing something that ain't broken. Now you made it worse. Now you got two problems. Now you fix something else. Now they're going to multiply. Now you're going to have 6, 9, 20 problems because you're fixing the wrong thing. In life, knowing how to fix something is part of the game, but that's only about 10% of the game. It's identifying the thing that needs to be fixed is the other 90% of it. Fixing things in life is 90% knowing what to fix, 10% knowing how to fix it. When you have a strategy in place, it will be a lot easier for you to diagnose issues and fix the specific problem that may be causing you issues. Not fixing a random problem, not just doing something to say that you did it. It's fixing the specific problem that is causing you an issue in the first place. You do not want to be lost about what the issue is because you are completely useless, and you don't want to be fixing the wrong things because even though you're doing something, you're being active, you're fixing something that wasn't even broken, and the thing that was broken is still broken. You haven't identified it yet. A lot of people have this issue here. Things are not working for them, but they're addressing something that's not even the issue that's causing things to not work. So what they do is actually make it worse. If an athlete gets injured and they don't know there's another area of their body that is causing the issue, they work on the wrong muscles and make things worse. So for example, let's say you're an athlete and your left knee starts bothering you. You're having problems with your left knee. So you say, oh, of course, so something's going on with my left knee. Let me go put some ice on that knee. Let me go to an orthopedist and let him take a look at my knee. Let me get some x-rays done on my knee. Let me go and do some treatment. Let me go get in a cold tub. Let me get in a hot tub. Let me try some cryotherapy. Let me do whatever I need to do so that I can figure out whatever this problem is with my body. Here's the problem with that train of thinking. The athlete doesn't realize that it's not his left knee that is actually the problem. Even though the result, the pain, is being felt in the left knee, the reason why that pain is happening is because there's a problem with his left hip. His hips are not in alignment. His hips are weak. They are not very flexible. So his knees bother him because his body is putting extra stress on the knees to make up for the lack of power it can derive from the hips. See how this works? And a really good strategist always fixes the right problem. So that athlete who starts working on their knee and doesn't even realize that it's the hip that's causing the knee issue, they do all these things to make sure their knees feel great. The problem is after doing all of that, next time they go out and perform, they're going to have the same issue all over again simply because they're fixing something that ain't broken. And they're not fixing the thing that is broken. So if you don't know what area it is that your body got injured in, you might be working on the wrong area and allowing the situation that caused the injury to get even worse than it was before. At least you can be closer to being able to fix it. At least you can get into the general vicinity of where the problem actually is and identify something that's actually causing an issue instead of fixing something that ain't even a problem in the first place. If your knee is bothering you and you have a strategy in place, your strategy might be to have someone around you who can better diagnose things than you can, who can diagnose things better than you can. They might let you know, hey, it's not your knee that's giving the problem. The knee is just the symptom The actual issue is your hip. Your hips are weak. Your hips are tight, and that's why it's putting extra stress on your knees. So now what we need to do is work on loosening your hips, and your knee will stop bothering you. But if you didn't know that, if you didn't have someone around you who understood the strategy of the human body and how everything works together, they call it the kinetic chain, you didn't have anyone around you who understood that strategy, you would probably be trying to fix the wrong thing, and then your knee would just keep getting worse and worse because you are working on the wrong issue. And then, who knows? Before too long, your basketball career might be over because your knees went out, and you would say, "Well, my knees just gave out on me." When your knees didn't give out on you, you just didn't have a strategy in place, so you were working on the wrong thing. When you have a strategy, you can see the overall picture and diagnose where the issue really is and fix it. Point number 4. Topic here today is the power of strategy. You develop tactical flexibility when you have a strategy. Tactical flexibility means if and when, it was usually more of a when, not an if, things don't go the way that you expected, things do not go according to plan, when you have a strategy in place, you can pivot, you can adjust your plan, you can adjust your strategy, you can adjust on the fly and make the changes that you need to make to still get to the outcome that you want to get to. When you don't have a strategy in place, you think you have tactical flexibility. What you actually have is just a whole bunch of tactics. You're just figuring things out along the way, figuring it out as you go. Now, while there are times in life you should figure it out as you go. I mean, just yesterday, the episode was called Stop Waiting. Just go do something. Be bold. Be aggressive. Make moves. Stop waiting for things to happen. Make things happen. It doesn't mean you can't strategize first, depending on what you're working on, how important it is to you. When you are without a strategy, folks, your whole format is just tactics, meaning you do something, see if it works, then you do something else, see if that works, then you do something else, see if that works. And when you're doing that, if you're really talented and really skilled and really smart in doing what you do, maybe there will be times in life when you do that and it actually works. The problem with that working is that it fools you into believing that you could just do that forever because you're just some genius. But the problem with that, on top of that, is that you're always reacting. You're in reactive mode all the time. Something happens, you react. Something else happens, you react to that. Something else happens, you react to that. You don't want to always be in reactive mode in life. All right, it causes anxiety. All right, disturbs the sleep. All right, maybe leads to high blood pressure, high cholesterol. When you're using a strategy, you can change tactics as necessary, but understand that your tactics will always fit within the overall framework of what you're doing. They're not just random things that you're doing and hoping that they work. The tactics fit in the framework of the overall goal. When you have a strategy, you will have other options to choose from when your first choice is unavailable, or when your first choice didn't work, or your first tactic just didn't produce the desired result. When you are being tactical in life, meaning you're just going from do something, see if that worked, react. Do something, see if it worked, react. When you're in tactical mode, you're stuck when your first option isn't available. Now you got to figure out something else, and then you got to figure out something else. Then you have to figure out something else. The problem with that is you eventually hit decision fatigue. You've made so many decisions, you used up all your brain power making decisions tactically on all these things that are happening. Eventually, when you come up to something where you really need some brain power, you don't have any left because you use it all up on these tactical choices that you had to make. Whereas instead of spending 100 units of brain power and decision-making power on tactics, you could have spent 20 units of brain and decision-making power on strategizing from the beginning. Then you would have 80 units of decision-making power remaining in your head to make decisions about things that are much more important than just the tactics moment to moment. You could have planned all that out from the beginning. For example, the strategy for when I do a live stream, for example, is I'm going to talk about the work on your game philosophy. I'm going to tell you something. When I do this show right here, I'm going to tell you something that goes underneath the umbrella of the work on your game philosophy. It's always a different subject. We've done 1,700 of them, and there's always a different subject. But understand the tactic, the strategy is the work on your game philosophy, right? This show. But the tactic is whatever the topic is that day. So the tactic could be, for example, limiting your associations to 3 levels of people. The tactic could be how to act decisively when the time is right. The tactic could be how to ignore the clowns in life. It could be the habit of doing things now. It could be a luck strategy is being outside all the time. It could be how to handle conflict. It could be to have authority, you have to have an opinion. So there are plenty of tactics that I could use all underneath the umbrella of the work on your game philosophy. And all of those are episodes of this show, by the way, if you didn't know. Again, workonyourgamepodcast.com. That is coming soon if it's not already out. But the strategy is we're always connecting it back to the work on your game philosophy. Sometimes I might talk about a current event that just happened. Other times I may be talking about some evergreen topic that is flexible. I can put it out anytime. I can put it out 10 years from now. It will be just as relevant as if I had put it out 10 years ago. That's the majority of the content that we do here. But I'm always relating what I share back to the work on your game philosophy, no matter what it is, no matter who it's about, no matter what occurred. That is the overall strategy, is that it's something related to work on your game. So if you listen to this show, I mean, somebody asked you, what is the show about? Well, you couldn't say it's about one specific thing. We don't talk about one specific thing every day. The one thing we always talk about is work on your game. And somebody might say, well, what the hell is work on your game? Then they can come on the show and they can listen. You have them listen and let them hear me say it. Showing up every day, do the work, putting yourself out there boldly and authentically, continuing to show up, making things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we always bring it back to ourselves. That's what work on your game is about. That is the overall strategy. That's the overall framework of what we do here. The tactics are, again, the different topics or whatever subject I choose to talk about that particular day. So when you have a strategy in place, like work on your game is an overall framework / strategy, you can choose different tactics that work within the framework. The same way that I told you a couple days ago, the Apple Store has an overall strategy of how they do things. You don't notice the strategy as much. It's not as out front the strategy. It's a hidden strategy. It's a baked in, invisible strategy. But the people who work there know what the strategy is. Trust me, they've been trained really well on what that strategy is. And overall, they have freedom within that strategy to do what they can do. And they have freedom with certain parameters to use different tactics. All right, here's how you can talk to this person. Here's where you can send this customer. This customer has this problem with their laptop. This person has this problem with their phone. This person having an issue with their AirPods. They have a little bit of tactical freedom, maybe a lot of tactical freedom, depending on how much skill they have, as to what they can do to help each customer. But it's overall fitting within the framework and the strategy of what the Apple Store wants their staff to do and how they want to serve their employees. There's an overall ethos for how things get done. So let's recap today's class, which is the power of strategy. The definition of strategy is a plan of action or policy designed to achieve a major or overall aim. I've been discussing this a lot as a lot of people ask me, when they ask me for help or express some challenge, it's clear that they don't have a strategy in place. So they're just trying to figure out things as they go along, which can work for anyone who's really smart. But eventually you're going to run into a roadblock, and that's when you have the problem of lacking strategy. And that's where today's masterclass comes in. Point number one, having a strategy lets you see your finish line. Many people begin something as a means to an end, but continue doing it as if it is the end because they didn't strategize from the beginning how they're actually going to get to the end. They just had some hope, dream, and wish in their mind. And the problem with that is life, many times, real life, alters the lab test. Point number two, strategy creates predictability. Something I learned in business is that you can actually predict what your business will do when you have a strategy in place. And a wise strategist in competition can predict the moves of their opponent because they've studied the game and they know exactly what to expect. Good strategists are always looking for ways to better predict outcomes, not just accepting random results and thinking that they're just genius enough to figure it out along the way. Point number three, when you strategize, you can diagnose issues and fix the specific problem that is actually causing the issue and not be lost as to what the issue is, or even worse, fixing something that's not even the actual problem. This is what a lot of people do when they do not have a strategy in place. For example, the athlete whose foot is hurting and they think they need to do something for their foot when it's actually your knee or your hips or your lower back that's causing the problem in your foot. If you don't understand the strategy of how the body works, maybe your trainer would, then you will be diagnosing and fixing the wrong issue, which will only make it worse. Point number four, strategy allows you tactical flexibility. When you don't have a strategy, your whole format is tactics. I mean, you had to do something, see what happens, and then you have to react. You're always in reactive mode, and eventually you're going to run out of energy always reacting to everything in life. When you have a strategy in place, you will have other options from when your first choice is unavailable. And when you're tactical, you're stuck with your first option, and then you got to figure out what to do next. Then you got to keep making decisions, and eventually you hit decision fatigue because all you're doing is making more and more decisions over time. But understand that tactics will eventually wear you out. Strategy will leave you replenished. You'll have plenty of energy because you use a smaller amount of energy than you would use on tactics at the beginning to plan out what you're going to do. Then you can use different tactics within the framework once you start doing things. So for example, this show, the strategy is work on your game. The tactics are each different topic. The Apple Store. The strategy is how Apple wants to deal with their customers and how they want to present themselves. The tactics are all the things that the employees are allowed to do to help you out when you come to them and ask a question or have some type of issue. If you want to learn how to really get strategic about where you're going and what you're doing and how you're going to actually achieve that outcome, not just figuring it out as you go along, I would suggest you come join us at Work on Your Game University. We got 4 different levels of the university for everybody, something for everyone there. But overall, we want to make sure there's a strategy for you to be the person you need to be so you can do what you need to do. So being what you need to be, we talk about that on the show all the time. You got the Mirror Motivation book for that. Doing what you need to do is the next thing. Then the result is you having what you want to have. Work on your game. Oh yeah, it's at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Listen up, I'm about to tell you about it in a minute. Work on your game. Dre all